Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast for a special edition. I'm your host, Ajoe21love, here bringing you part two of Sports Review Topics, number 22. Yesterday, obviously, I talked about recap of Week 10, all that, talked about news on the NBA, etc. However, I was frustrated with the Bears, as you could tell, and I cut my podcast a little bit short. So now I'm decided to make a part two for my predictions for Week 11. Also got some news on some UFC fights to come, so I'll go over all that and more. Like I said, thank you for joining me. If you're new, like and subscribe. It would help out the video, and also if you want to listen to my predictions and also my recaps of my the NFL Week 10, click on that video that I posted yesterday. Also tomorrow, I'll of course have my AEW Dynamite review. So nonetheless, let's get into the podcast episode, shall we? Okay, so NFL Week 11, it's a good one. 14 games in the Coops. 3 very good primetime games this week, which is probably the first for this season. So, first, we're starting off Week 11 with Thursday Night Football, a crucial and what should be a good game. Cardinals 6-3 going to Seattle, who is also 6-3. Now, this is like a crossroads game, I would say, for both teams. I mean, Seattle, they got off to the hot start. Let Russ cook. They were 6-0, and Russ, and obviously their first loss came to Arizona in that great game on Sunday Night Football that went into overtime. And the Cardinals, well, first off, so Seattle's dropped their last 2 straight and is now looked pretty. I mean, Russ, they've been playing so much on him. Excuse me, I have to click this thing out on my computer. That's good. They're playing too much on Russ. As far as the Cardinals, obviously, that Hail Murray on Sunday, which dazzled and took the win against the Bills. Like I said, a crossroads game. Both teams Cardinals are moving this way, Seahawks are going this way. So, and I think Cardinals are actually the better team right now at this moment, you can say. I mean, they have a really good running game. Two-hit monster, Chase Edmonds, Kenyon Drake, also Kyler Murray when he wants to run. And their defense is actually better than, I would say it's underrated. I wouldn't say it's top 15, but it's near in the middle of the pack, I would say, as far as defense is concerned. And they're just a better team right now. I expect still high scoring. So I'm going with Cardinals 30-26 over Seattle. They definitively, well, depending on the Rams-Bucks game, which I'll get into in a sec, and they moved in 7-3 and are in first place probably by themselves in the NFC West. Excuse me. Next, we move to Sunday games. So, this is interesting. The number 1 overall pick in the draft, Joe Burrow, versus number 2 overall pick in the draft, Chase Young. Bengals in Washington, FedEx Field. Washington, they narrowly lost last week's game against the Lions. Although Alex Smith, his debut was really good. Joe Burrow, I like, but their defense has a bunch of holes. And Joe Burrow, he can put points on the board, but I just don't trust that defense. No. And that defensive line, I mean, the Bengals' offense line, yes, didn't allow a sack against the Titans, but the Titans' pass rush sucks. And then we saw against a much better defense or front seven of the Steelers last week or last Sunday, they had their way with the offense line. So I gotta go with. It'll be close, but I'll go with Washington 21-17. Next up, Falcons, Saints. Really good rivalry. The Falcons have new life under Raheem Morris. I mean, if Todd Gurley didn't score against the Lions, they would be undefeated. Assuming, obviously, they make the field goal. But they would have been undefeated right now under Raheem Morris. And they're playing tough. The Saints, first game without Drew Brees, whether it's Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, or both, the Saints just have more juice, and a lot of playmakers still. I mean, Michael Thomas back, Emmanuel Sanders, Jared Cook, Adam Troutman. He's been coming on the scene the last couple weeks. You know, Alvin Kamara, I expect a heavy dosage of him. Their defense, basically bend but don't break. The Falcons, it's tempting to go with the Falcons, but I like the Saints to win on a last-second field goal. 23-21 Saints. They get it done in their first game without Brees. Next up, don't need to say much about this. The 9-0 Steelers going to Jacksonville. Jacksonville, they almost stole one from Green Bay on Sunday in Lambeau. Jake Luton, he's all right, but you just have to go back to the Jaguars winning week 1 against the Colts. I think that's the thing that makes Jags fans a little uneasy because, you know, they be on edge to take Trevor Lawrence if that didn't happen. But now, I mean, Justin Fields or Trey Lance, whoever they pick, I expect to still be good, but you just have to go back to that. Nonetheless, Steelers expect to go 10-0, 27-14. Maybe Jags can keep it interesting to start, but yeah. Next up, Patriots going to Houston. We are not dead yet. We are still moving, and I was very impressed with what I saw last week against, or last Sunday night against Baltimore in the freezing rain. And considering we face Houston, who got gashed on the ground by Cleveland, I expect nothing else but we run it and run it. I mean, Deshaun Watson, I expect to still make some plays, but I think we can control the clock and Cam will make some plays. Ultimately, I have the Patriots winning 24-16, and we move to 500 on the season, 5-5. Still very much in it. Speaking of Cleveland, they host Philly on Sunday. Philly, I mean, I give credit to Giants on Sunday. I picked them. At the same time, Philly, they've been a disappointment all season, pretty much. Now, there were a few weeks against the Steelers and against the Ravens. They pushed them to their limit, and I got a little more confidence in them. But like at the start of the season, you just have to hold your breath with the Eagles. And I just have more confidence in the Browns to just run that running game and have Baker do what he needs to do. And they win by a touchdown, 28-20. Next up, Detroit goes to Carolina. Teddy Bridgewater wasn't as bad of an injury. We'll see how he does. We see how he comes back this week, if at all. Matthew Stafford, he also injured his thumb on his throwing hand, which I think will also affect him. He says he'll play, but no Christian McCaffrey. However, I still think the Panthers are the better team, the more confident team right now. And I'm going with them 20-14. Should be interesting. Although the Lions, though, I'm actually switching. The Lions, I'm going with them. Dang it, my pen fell. Okay. I'm going with the Lions 24-21. The Lions are at 4-5 now. They got some momentum. I think, and I just think they have good chance of getting the 500 and keep their hopes alive as well. Next up, interesting rematch of the playoffs last year. Tennessee going to Baltimore. We saw, obviously, Baltimore get run over by New England on Sunday night. Tennessee, they looked good in the first half against Indianapolis last week. However, the adjustments and the special teams just dug them a hole, and they weren't the same in the second half. This game, I think both teams obviously got to get back on track. However, I have more faith in Tennessee because the way New England gashed Baltimore is good for Tennessee. Tennessee, with that big boy, Derrick Henry, if we can gash Baltimore, they can gash Baltimore. Now that offense line isn't the same since the one that faced Baltimore last year in the playoffs. However, they're still good enough, and I expect Derrick Henry and them to control the clock, and Tennessee wins 29-21. Next up, Jets going to SoFi Stadium to play the Chargers. This was the game that was flexed from a couple weeks ago due to some of the changes. Nonetheless, Chargers obviously have more faith in them, although they've suffered heartbreakers throughout the season. But this is the Jets, though. So it would not shock me if the Jets beat the Chargers because they've been such heartbreaking all season. But still going with Chargers and Justin Herbert, 23-12 over the Jets. Next up, Miami, looking pretty, 6-3, going to Denver. Drew Lock may not play. I don't think it will matter. It would matter. Miami, their defense is for real. Their special teams, Brian Flores has instilled a culture and a belief in Miami, and they are following it, and they are just believing in themselves. And Tua, he doesn't have to do too much, but they have a quality weapons. They have quality weapons, a receiving core. Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, Adam Shaheen. They don't have to do a lot. And so I'm going with Miami over the sad Broncos, 28-17. Yeah. Next up, Dallas should get Andy Dalton back, but they go to Minnesota, who now has new lease on life on a winning streak. It's funny now, both teams You look at how they started, and now they still have something to play for this point in the season. Minnesota is still aiming for a wild card spot, and Dallas, because of the terrible NFC East, they're still in line for a possible win of the division. Tripped over my words there, sorry. But Minnesota, I just trust more. I think they're starting to believe in their formula, the way to win, ride Dalvin Cook, have Kirk Cousins do little by little, make some throws. Don't put all the pressure on him. Just ride with Cook. Play quality defense, bend but don't break. Dallas, obviously they have some playmakers they have Zeke and they have those receivers, but it's just, they're just disappointing and on offense. So ride the wave of the Vikings, and once again I'm picking them to win against Dallas 28-17. Maybe it'll be close late, but I think Vikings will just run away with it. Next up, an interesting one in Indianapolis. Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers going to Indianapolis to take on Phillip Rivers and the Colts. This should be interesting. Now, Green Bay almost they got caught while sleeping, and they almost lost to Jiggling on Sunday. Indianapolis, they were in kind of a dogfight the first half against their division foes, Tennessee, and then the second half they ran away with the game. Now, both teams have their division foes coming up next week in crucial games, and they may be looking ahead a little, because Green Bay, if they want to take out Chicago, they have their chance on Sunday or next Sunday and take the division. Whereas Indianapolis, they have their division rival Tennessee again next week. So both could be looking ahead a little bit. But nonetheless, this should be an interesting game. Indianapolis, I think, is a more well-rounded team. Phillip Rivers won't have to do a lot. It'll be kind of the same as they did against Tennessee. Their front four, Indianapolis front four, is vastly underrated. They got Justin Houston, Danico Autry. They got pass rushers on that front seven. Darius Leonard, DeForest Buckner, who has helped change that defense. I can't say much. I think they can frustrate Rodgers. I still expect the Packers to score some points, but I'm going to go with Indianapolis to win 28-26 and a close one. Next up, Sunday Night Football Viva Las Vegas. Chiefs. 81 Chiefs going to Vegas, playing the Raiders, who are on a tear. The Raiders are feeling confident. They are 6-3. They just dismantled the Denver Broncos. Now, yes, the Broncos are not really that good of a team, but also if you look at the Raiders season, I mean, they beat the Saints. They beat the Chiefs the first go around. They have the right formula to play against the Chiefs. And I mean, it sounds crazy. It sounds weird. But with all those weapons and Andy Reid on a bye, yes, all those little ifs, ands, and buts. But at the same time, the Raiders, I'm riding with the hot hand here. If they can run the ball with Josh Jacobs behind that really good offensive line, and then continue to throw over the top with Nelson Aguilar, Henry Ruggs, and throw it to Darren Waller, these Raiders are a problem. And I'm going with the Raiders to beat and sweep the Chiefs 34-30. Sorry, Chiefs fans, but it's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling good about these Raiders. Next up, to end NFL Week 11. It's a doozy. Rams going to Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. Boy, this is interesting. Tampa Bay is the internet darling pretty much of this season. And for good measure, obviously, because they have Tom Brady and Gronk and all of these weapons on offense. And their defense last year, because of all the turnovers and their record, their defense didn't get enough credit. Now this year they are. Whereas the Rams are like being swept under the rug, in my opinion, as far as a good team this year has been concerned. I mean, their offense is playing well. Their defense has playmakers around, and they're not really getting much love. And their front four, much like the front seven of the Bears did against the Bucs, can pose a problem to the Bucs because Tom Brady, as we know, is not a mobile quarterback. Russell Wilson is, and they still got to him, and they still frustrate him. So I think, now yes, Tampa Bay has a bunch of weapons on offense, but I think this formula, I think the Rams will come up with some way to disrupt the timing and this is like a game the Rams can steal, and they know that they can win this division. Because the Cardinals are good and flashy, but they're not really complete. The Seahawks are trailing and falling, whereas the Rams are being swept in the rug and probably the most balanced team of the three. So I think this is kind of a statement for the Rams, and they win 27-26. I mean, that offense line of the Bucs is not really all well, and they can do enough with Aaron Donald and crew to confuse Tom Brady, and we'll see. We'll see how things goes. Plus, I think perhaps because this is kind of a Super Bowl 53 rematch, because the Rams versus Tom Brady, and the majority of that Rams roster is still stemming from Super Bowl 53. I'll credit the offensive line ain't as good as it was then, but still. Plus, to keep in mind, Andrew Whitworth, this will be their first game starting without him. And he has been a wall. He has been there for a long time. He is a cornerstone of that offensive line. He probably doesn't get enough credit he deserves, but they may be in a little bit of trouble without him. Now, they can still get him back for the playoffs, but that's something to keep in mind. So, I expect a close game. So, with that, those were my predictions for Week 11 of the NFL season. Now, I'll get some news about some upcoming fights as far as UFC is concerned. So, a pretty interesting fight happening in January, which sounds crucial for the 145-pound division. Max Holloway, the former champion of 145, who lost 2 straight to the current champion, Alexander Volkanovski. The first one was close. The second one, you can agree that perhaps Max Holloway won, but they gave it to Volkanovski. Nonetheless, he is 0-2 and he's on a 2-fight losing streak. Aiming to get back on the horse and against a really good Calvin Kattar, who is climbing up the rankings and is now in the top 10. I forgot his ranking, but he's in the top 10, I know, and he can make a huge statement. Sorry about that. Apparently I got Amber Alert. So, alright, I got rid of that. So, anyway, back to the fight. Calvin Kattar, he's in the top 10. This is a true statement, a true question, if Calvin Kattar is really ready for the big time at 145, taking on the former champ, the former, consensus greatest 145-pound champion, Max Holloway. Can Kattar get it done? I don't know, but we'll see. And another fight. that's kind of interesting. Chris Weidman versus Uriah Hall, the rematch. Now, I'm sure you're guessing like me, where did they fight before? Well, apparently they fought in a different promotion. A decade ago, it was Chris Weidman versus Uriah Hall. I actually looked it up, and apparently Chris Weidman won with a TKO victory over Uriah Hall in the first round. Now, this fight is interesting because Uriah Hall obviously had chances to fight Romero and Jacare this year, but they failed to materialize due to reasons. Now, in February, it'll be him versus Weidman. Now, Weidman, as we know, Goff, he was 13-0. Excuse me. He was riding high as the middleweight champion. He dethroned Anderson Silva not once but twice. Beat Vitor, beat Machida, and then he ran to Luke Rockhold. And then he was not the same. He has been the same after that fight. I mean, he did beat Kelvin Gastelum, but, things have not gone well for him since losing his middleweight title. Now, he did try to go up and wait to fight Dominic Reyes, but he got finished. And then in his last fight, he got a win, the fish win, I believe, over Omari Markmanov, something like. Sorry, butchered his name, but I believe that's his name. So Weidman, we'll see how against another top 10 guy. See how he does. And then the main event of that card, UFC 258, the day before Valentine's Day. We're getting it. Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Now, Usman, we know he's been on a tear. He dismantled Tyron Woodley to win the title. He beat Colby Covington in a great fight to retain the title in his first defense. And then last summer, he defended the title against Jorge Masvidal. Now, Masvidal, he was taking the fight on a week's notice, so you can put that into assessment. Maybe it would have been different if Masvidal was given more time to prepare for the fight, but still, Usman won in convincing fashion. Now, going to face Gilbert Burns on February 13th. Gilbert Burns also as well. He had that great win over Tyron Woodley as well. So it'll be an interesting matchup to process. And, I'm really intrigued to see how these fights go down. But so nonetheless, so that's the end of the episode today. Got my predictions and some fight news for 2021 and the UFC is concerned. But hope you guys enjoyed this part 2. Also, of course, if you're new, like and subscribe. How about the video? So thank you all. And I'll see you tomorrow for AEW Dynamite review. So thank you.